Hey everybody, it's John Corelli, your average guy with his average guy opinions. This is episode number 75, and this goes out to Clay Dog Madman. Thank you for subscribing and thank you for checking out my videos. My goal is to be up to 100 by the end of the year, so I think if you subscribe, you're number 20. I'm just having fun with this. If it goes somewhere, great. If it doesn't, that's great too. And all people that listen regularly or just listen once in a while and happen to see this video, if you have a suggestion, maybe I can do it. It just depends. I'm trying to do one 10-minute video a day. So far, I'm keeping up with it pretty well. So today, or this segment is about Marvelous Marvin Hagler. I don't know a lot about him, but I know about the heyday he was involved in. Boxing in the 80s was amazing in his weight class. But he died earlier this week. It's at the age of 66. And it's just a really cool, I don't know, he was amazing. And so were the boxers of that time in the middleweight divisions. You had Marvelous Marvin Hagler, you had Hitman Thomas Hearns, you had Sugar Ray Leonard, and then you had Roberto Duran from Panama, also called Manos de Piedras, which means hands of stone. Wow. I mean, these guys all beat the crap out of each other for our entertainment back in the 80s. Hagler also had a very famous fight against one of my countrymen, Vito Antuofermo. Just an amazing fight that I think made this cover of Sports Illustrated, if I remember correctly, back in the 80s. They all had their own styles and their own strengths, those four guys that I mentioned before. Sugar Ray, of course, was the pretty one who could move and was truly a boxer, an artist. Hearns was just the tall, ripped guy that was tough and a Detroit guy. And I think Hagler may have been from Michigan as well, although I could be wrong about that. But Hagler, I should have done some more research, but Hagler was the guy that just kept coming. He just kept coming. He never stopped. In fact, a lot of people in the fight versus Leonard back in, I want to say 86 maybe, 87, right around there, think he was robbed. I was a Ray Leonard fan at the time because I thought he was so pretty and everybody loved him. He was like the golden boy. But probably Hagler did win that fight if you look at it. Hagler brought the fight to Leonard and gave Leonard everything he could handle. It was just an amazing time to watch boxing. Like I said, Hearns, Hagler, Leonard, and Roberto Duran. Duran was the fourth guy, and he just looked like he didn't belong there. Looked like Fidel Castro just decided to put on some gloves and go at it. I mean, these guys all had but also Roberto Duran was a guy that just kept coming too. So sorry, I kind of at a loss for words because it was an amazing time to watch boxing. They had Saturday fights on NBC, Dr. Ferdy Pacheco, maybe you guys remember that. But they were great fights to watch, and it was back when you didn't have to go to HBO. That was just starting. HBO was not ruling the fight game yet. And unfortunately, that's when Don King and his craziness got into the works too. I want to flash back a little bit to boxing in general. So I know there's going to not be as much of an homage to Hagler as it could be, but I just respected the guy, and it's sad that he died early because, and unfortunately a lot of our athletes do, because especially boxers, it's just so hard on your body. Football players too. These guys just go through so much just to try to make money in this world and to become a legend, really, and to entertain us that are willing to pay for it. So now I want to go back to 70s boxing, which is boxing I was kind of raised on, especially heavyweight boxing at that time, which was, of course, amazing. You had I'm going to put that in a group of four, too. You had, of course, Ali, and then you had Joe Frazier and Ken Norton, and, of course, George Foreman. Those, I think, were the major four in the 70s who were all fighting for the title all the time. Amazing fights. Thrill in Manila, the Rumble in the Jungle. Howard Cosell came up with these names and was lucky enough to watch these fights and commentate on them and get to know these men very well. I remember when Leon Spinks beat Ali, that was a huge deal. And then in the rematch, I remember watching the rematch, because here was the thing. So we had Saturday fights like in the 80s. In the 70s, they had Friday night fights on ABC. And I would watch those sometimes when I could. My mom wasn't a big fan of men punching each other for entertainment, but my grandparents were into it. And I remember watching that rematch with Spinks and how upset my grandparents were because people my grandparents' age were not big fans of Muhammad Ali. He was a Jesus, I can't make words. Conscientious objector to the Vietnam War, and secondly, he converted to Islam and changed his name from Cassius Clay, of course, to Muhammad Ali. Everyone knows that. But I remember my grandparents watching the fight, and of course, Cosell loved Ali, and he was the commentator on the fight, and he's just everything Ali did was right, and everything Spinks did was nothing, which was kind of fair, to be honest. Everyone wanted Ali to win that fight, except for certain people like my grandparents. They were just, I remember them bitching, going, no, he's not saying anything about the kid. Look, the kid just landed two punches on Ali, and they're not saying anything about him. And I remember me cheering for Ali, and they probably weren't happy about that, because Ali was an icon to people my age, to kids growing up in the 70s and 80s. So let's flash forward to the 90s now and how boxing changed. Yeah, you're going to have to wait. Cat's being a jerk. In the 90s, of course, Tyson took over, right? And there were guys that tried to challenge Tyson. Of course, Buster Douglas beat him, and that was crazy. And then he got his rematch and beat him back, I think. Or maybe, no, Buster Douglas maybe lost to someone else. I can't remember. As I got older, it was harder for me, too, to watch guys just punch each other for our entertainment. I don't care about UFC or MMA. In fact, I make jokes about them on stage. But and I don't disrespect the guys. I just can't watch these guys pummel each other. I mean, I've gotten softer as I've gotten older. And now I don't even really care about boxing anymore. It's lost its luster. There's less and less American boxers that are dominating, and therefore less to care about. I'm not a very nationalistic person. I'm a humanist. I like everybody. I don't care where you're from. I don't care what you're about. As long as you're a decent person, that's all I care about. But when it comes to boxing, I really was entrenched in the American boxers. And to me, the last watchable one is Floyd Mayweather Jr. And unfortunately, as much as I liked him, he wasn't the greatest guy. And I got to believe he also dodged Manny Pacquiao and they didn't fight when they were at their peak. He dodged Manny for like 5 years and then finally got the fight he wanted and beat him. And I watched the fight. I think it's the last fight I watched. And it wasn't that great. Let's be honest. I think that was close to 8-10 years ago, whenever that fight happened. So yeah, I mean, Tyson was amazing, but he frankly made boxing boring because he beat up everybody. So I miss those 70s and 80s days. I am glad they have made some rule changes. Like when I was a kid, it was a 15-round bout. It got down to 12. Now most bouts, when I just watch, like I'm in a bar and I look up, they seem to be done in 10, which I think is good actually. 30 minutes of guys beating on each other is plenty. Think of any real fight you've ever seen. It's over in a minute or two usually. Not too many fights last for more than a couple minutes. So I mean, of course it's different. No, they don't have gloves and a ref, but still 30 minutes of guys trying to beat each other up is a very long time, and I'm glad it is down to that, because we saw terrible things happen in those late rounds. Like many of you will probably remember when Ray Boom Boom Mancini killed Duck Koo Kim in the ring. And it was in the 14th round. It was a war. It was in Korea, I believe, where Duck Koo Kim was from, and it was an absolute war of a fight. And back then in the 80s, I liked watching that. I mean, it was an amazing fight. I think there were bantamweights. They were somewhere in between light and middle, I believe. And Ray Boom Boom Mancini was a big deal. And of course, we love him. Us Italians, we love each other, eh? I don't really care, but he was fun to watch. And unfortunately, yeah, Duck Koo Kim died from that last punch he took from Ray Boom Boom Mancini. And so I'm glad that we're down to 10 rounds. I just think boxing has lost its luster for a lot of people. People like Don King ruined it. Unfortunately, Floyd Mayweather, in my opinion, didn't help. And when I do think he dodged Manny Pacquiao. And for guys like me that really want to see American boxing do well, who you got? I can't name an American boxer right now. But I kind of went off track. Clay Dog Madman, thank you for suggesting this. I'm glad you said something, because I really did totally miss on Hagler. So I can talk 10 minutes about boxing, probably not as much of an homage to Marvin Hagler as maybe you hope for, but he was a badass. I mean, that guy, he was the one out of the four. I would take him in a street fight out of all of those guys. Even Duran maybe too. Duran was a badass, and even Hearns and Leonard, they all brought stuff. It was a great time to watch boxing, but Hagler just... he was an everyman. I think that those other guys, we didn't feel there was something you felt when you saw Marvin Hagler and what he did in the ring. I don't know what else he did with his life. I should have done more research, so I apologize for that. But it is just your average guy opinions. Thanks for coming in, guys. Thanks for checking it out, and thank you, Marvin Hagler, for making boxing really great in the '80s and bringing me some good memories. All right, thanks, guys. I'll see you next time. Have a great night, day, or whatever you're doing. Talk to you soon. Bye.